Welcome to my horse farm in Sharon Springs, New York, and today we're going to take Enzo, the D130, for a test drive. If you followed me for any amount of time, or if you've been to the website, I'm sure you've seen this build, but I think the first thing you should notice is just the stance. It definitely has a dominating stance, but you're going to get to hear it and hear all about it, so let's go for the test drive. So it's test drive time with Enzo, the D130, and before I get into talking about Enzo, I'm going to point out a few things. You're going to see this side window get covered with mud because of the size of these tires, and I have them what you would call poke, where they stick outside the wheel arches. The second thing that's not typical, not normal, that you would see when I'm driving is the Apple CarPlay. So when I'm actually driving one of my Defenders or a Porsche, the phone gets turned off and gets put in a center cubby or somewhere away, because this entire test drive, I'm going to be looking at this touch screen, and it shows I have 136 text messages and one voicemail, and that's going to drive me bonkers. So I just put that up and I enjoy the drive. So let me just let you hear the tires, and then we'll get into it, and I'm pretty excited. This is the first snow of the year, but this is the third winter with Enzo, the D130. So I think you'll agree, those are some noisy tires, but they do look cool. And I've definitely had a number of people call me and message me and say, hey, should I get those type of tires? And I'm like, hey, it's personal preference. In fact, I just did a trip that was 2 hours each way in Enzo on these tires, and they did fine. I didn't mind. All right, so let's talk about the D130. Specifically, this is Enzo, but the D130, the body style, which technically is 127 inches from center of axle to center of axle. That's what it was called, was a 127 originally by Land Rover, and the first year that the 130 went into existence, which was the 127, was 1985. And 1985 it had a diesel motor, of course, but in 1990 was a big update for Land Rover. That's when the Land Rover Discovery came out, and it had the 200 TDI, which is a 2.5 liter turbo diesel. And that was when Land Rover became a vehicle that you could drive at high speeds and you could tow stuff. So it was a big improvement for Land Rover. That was 1990. And then in 1994 is when the 300 TDI came out. And the 300 TDI is also a 2.5 liter turbo diesel. There's only 7 horsepower difference between the 200 and the 300 TDI. Enzo has a 300 TDI. So I have a lot of people ask me, what's the most desirable Land Rover I should get? And my answer is anything with a 200 TDI or a 300 TDI. And the reason being is it's void of any computer, any electronics, and the entire world, rest of world, these are desirable because it doesn't have a computer. 1998 is when the next motor came out, which was the TD5, and it has a computer, and they're known to have issues. But something about driving the 200 or the 300 TDI, it has a great sound, it's bulletproof, and it gets great gas mileage. So in fact, where I drove Enzo 2 hours each way, and right now I have right at 3/4 of a tank. So it hasn't used much fuel. I average probably about 27 to 28 miles per gallon on these 35-inch tires in this truck. So it's definitely got it's got some fuel efficiency to it, and it does have plenty of power. So let me be kind of quiet and just drive it as soon as I get on in other words, drive it through the gears as soon as I get on a road that will justify that, because I am on back roads and farmland. So these roads are definitely bumpy, and Enzo is set up for off-road capability. And it's not to say that any Land Rover is not off-road capable, because trust me, they're all off-road capable. That's what they were designed for, was for a farmer to be able to do their work. But those tires do look cool. All right, so I'm just sitting here at an idle. So just so you can hear how it idles in the cabin. As I said, Enzo, this is my third winter with Enzo. And we've made a number of advancements over the last 3 seasons. Actually, over the last 6 months, we've made a number of advancements. And it's not that Enzo's missing in advancements, but there's things that were not available 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, that we just didn't have that we have now. One of the things, starting in the interior, is this air conditioning unit. So the air conditioning unit is under the dash, and that's all it does is air conditioning. It does not do heat at all. It's just strictly air conditioning. So you don't have a mix of your air and your heat, meaning a very efficient defrost system. So it does have heat and it does have air, but both systems are separate. So the heat, I can adjust it with the levers over here on the left side of the gauges, meaning that the one lever will decide if I want heat or if I want cool. That's the lever that's the closest to the inside of the instrument cluster here. And then the one on the left is the adjustment to actually direct the heat up on the windscreen or direct it down. So those are the two levers. On the right side, there's another lever, and that lever is for the fan speed to, again, direct the heat only. It has nothing to do with air conditioning. So the controls on the air conditioning unit are these two controls that are below the dash. This system is efficient, it works extremely well, but over the last, let's say, about 8 months at time of recording this, which is November 2022, we've combined a unit, we've custom built a unit that combines the heat and the air. So let's continue driving. Listen to that diesel. First gear pull away. Second gear. I'm at 30, a little more than 30. Now I'm in third gear. Plenty of power. Mike is in front of me, so I don't want to run over the top of him. This is a very twisty road. 40 miles an hour, third gear. 45. I'll say one thing, there was just a truck on the side of the road unloading their four-wheeler. Everywhere I go with Enzo, it draws a crowd, and people absolutely stop what they're doing and just look. In fact, I just did Destination Defender in Saugerties, New York, and it was pretty cool that I pulled up to the entrance and everybody just stopped what they were doing to look at Enzo. And then as I drove down the gravel road into the event, people were pulling their phone out really fast and shooting video as I drove by. That's a cool feeling. So Enzo is definitely a social media hit, and I designed everything on Enzo, designed it to my specifications. I had a very set design in mind. And it definitely has met all my expectations. I've driven it a lot. I've used it as a daily driver. I don't hesitate to drive it wherever. It's fun to drive. And I have a lot of people ask me, well, what do you think about the new Defender? And then Land Rover came out with a 130 recently, the new Land Rover 130, and you can't compare it. It's completely different. I mean, it's classic car versus new car. New Defender, it's a cool car. There's no denying that, but it's a new car that's going to depreciate in value. It's not going to go up in value. It doesn't have character. It doesn't have personality. It's highly technical. It's not something that you can work on your own. You have to take it to the dealership. It just doesn't have soul. And again, it's a new car and it's a cool car, but I prefer classic cars. There's something magical about a classic car, and anybody can go buy a new Defender or a new Bronco or a new Jeep or a new Toyota, whatever, because I have a lot of people go, oh, I could buy 5 blanks and have money left over. Well, yeah, you're buying 5 whatever that's depreciating in value that anybody could buy off of a dealership's lot. Anybody could have. It's not unique. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want as an individual. But I get a lot of people on social media that want to say that, but don't judge me. It's what I enjoy. It's what brings me happiness. I've worked hard for a number of years so I can afford things like this, and I don't buy them to show off. I buy them because I enjoy them, but I do buy them as investments because Land Rover Defenders have gone up in value over the last 10 years by over 480%. You've heard me say that a number of times, but you can verify that yourself. A new Defender has gone down in value. A new Bronco down in value. Those vehicles will go down in value, as will a number of other common vehicles. And I don't mean that as an insult, calling them common, but again, you can buy them off the lot. Anybody can buy them off the lot. And it's not to say they're not cool, but I like classic. All right, so I'm doing about 55 miles an hour right now. Barely giving it any accelerator. I'm in 5th gear, and you can hear it. So Enzo was not designed to be a highway vehicle. You can definitely drive it on the highway, but anytime you raise it up, which it does have 3 inches of lift, plus these tires that are 35 inch, but technically they're 37s, and they are a mud competition tire. They're not even a DOT tire, Department of Transportation. So it doesn't handle as well as, let's say, some BF Goodrich KM3s, which are a mud terrain, or BF Goodrich KO2, which is an all-terrain, or whatever other type of tire. So let's start with the interior. The first thing you'll notice, I mentioned the Apple CarPlay, which says I have 138 text messages now, which I just need to turn that off. It has Apple CarPlay 7-inch touchscreen. This is an Alpine head unit. This is a high fidelity system. It has a JL Audio amplifier that's located under the seat where the battery is also. It has handmade Focal separate speakers. So I have tweeters in the dash, I have mid-ranges in the lower dash, and I have a larger set of mid-ranges in the front of the seat boxes. The seats sit on what's called seat boxes. So, and then in the rear, I have component speakers again, which are mid-range tweeters, and then we custom built a subwoofer box, so we have an Alpine subwoofer under that center console. This has seating for 4, center cubby here, and a center cubby in the second row. We designed this center cubby so it actually fits me, because if you see how I sit in this truck, it's perfect. My arm is rested on the armrest here, or the door, and then on the center cubby, and the steering wheel is perfect for my size, which, by the way, this is a Modellita steering wheel, which is handmade by Modellita. They've been around for a long time. They're a very small company. But this is a piece of walnut, and then you'll see the CNC brushed aluminum spokes, and it has a solid piece of billet aluminum, what's called a center boss. So you do have to polish this to keep it pretty. Takes about 25 to 30 weeks to get one of these steering wheels made. Again, small company. The staff is much older because Modellita used to make steering wheels for MG, Jaguar, Aston Martin, the list goes on. They are craftsmen, artisans, and they make beautiful steering wheels. And if you look at this, you will not see a seam of where the walnut has been put together for the spokes to be able to fit. We do have LED backlit gauges here. This speedometer is a newer style speedometer. It shows 1,745 miles. In total on Enzo, I've put about 3,500 miles, but I changed the speedometer a while back because I tried a new LED pattern in the back, meaning lighting. This is much brighter. You can actually see these gauges at night, which is very uncommon in a Land Rover Defender. You can't really see the gauges, and the headlights are not very bright in Land Rover Defenders. This one, though, completely the opposite. Everything is LED. LED gauges, LED courtesy lights, LED headlights, LED brake lights, turn signals, stop lights, everything is LED. So I can definitely see at night quite well. The seats I am in is a more sporty of a seat. We call this the MK2 seat. So this seat does hug you. It's got the bolsters on the side. It gives you a hug. And then you'll see what looks like a blood pressure cuff. And this is your lumbar, so you can pump up your lumbar. I absolutely love this. Not electronics. It's like a blood pressure cuff. And then you pump it up and you're like, oh, that's too much. And you hit the release and you feel it go down. This is a chocolate leather interior, and it gets a very nice patina, which if you're going to be in Dallas, January 5th through the 8th of 2023, come see me. I'll be at the K. Hutchinson Center. Check out my website, helderburg.com, for more details. But you'll be able to see Enzo in person with the patina of these seats. So it has chocolate leather with a diamond stitch pattern, and the stitching is a caramel color. The seats fit me nicely. You see I'm actually wearing my Stetson, and I have room in the back where it's not hitting. In my Puma seat, which was Elizabeth, you can see on helderburg.com, my hat does hit often, so then I have to take it off. It has a chocolate Alcantara suede, which is an Italian Alcantara suede headliner, and it feels very nice. And then on the sun visor, you'll see that it also does have the caramel stitching in the sun visor. So everything matches. The shift boot, the brake boot, is also chocolate leather with the caramel stitching again. And just so you probably don't know, but depending on which shot, but I am going up and down hills right now in Enzo, and it does quite well. So, interior, it has black carpet, and like I said, chocolate headliner. Everything is LED, and it also has a roll bar internally. This roll bar is connected to the frame. So the design of Enzo was for me to actually go out and play with the Jeep Club and do some off-roading and, be assured that I would be safe. The roll bar system is designed for a low-speed rollover. If you're doing 75 miles an hour, it's probably not going to help you because that's not what it was designed for. Listen to those tires. So I stopped again to just let you hear the truck and also talk a little more about interior. So it is a 5-speed manual. It's called an R380 gearbox, but the transmission and the differentials have been re-geared for these bigger tires and the lift. So it allows me to get up to highway speeds, but it also keeps the speedometer at a correct speed. I highly recommend this 5-speed manual transmission over an automatic transmission. I've had some people, can you do automatic? And the answer is, yeah, we can do an automatic transmission, but I will advise you, whenever you do an automatic transmission, it does take the drivability away because it's not as peppy, it's not as fast, it's not as fun. And driving one of these is really easy. So let me just pull away. The clutch is very easy. We do a different clutch slave, we do a different spring. You see, it's not hard to do it. It's easy. So we make it very drivable for an individual, and the manual transmission on a Helderburg is very easy to learn how to drive, just because of the design that we do to it. You'll notice the steering is very tight, and again, designed by Helderburg, that what we do with the assisted power steering and the gears that are in the power steering assist, it's not dancing all over, and it is precise. A typical Land Rover, or the builds that you will see, the steering is like driving a truck. But the whole design of what I wanted to do, how Helderburg was formed, is I bought a Land Rover and I loved it. Loved to look at it, loved the story behind Land Rover, loved the iconic design, but I really disliked driving it. It was not a whole lot of fun to drive. And that was my quest. How do I make it where it can be a daily driver and where it can be enjoyable? And I'm the first to tell you, you will give up some of the things that you would, in a Land Rover, even in a Helderburg, you will give up some of the things that you would have in a Cadillac Escalade or a Suburban or a Denali or one of those. But in my opinion, you will gain so much more in a Helderburg or a classic Land Rover Defender. But it's completely you and your decision and how you do that. All right, so we're going to climb a hill now. So I'm just going to go down into second gear. This is a very steep hill. And here we go. 30. Listen to my sound when to shift gears. 35. And I went into third gear. 40. 45. 50. And now I'm having to slow down. Mike, with the camera in front of me, is holding me back. So, and then also the corners. I probably have about 30% accelerator. Woo, look at it go through those corners. It does do well, even on the lift and everything. It does well through the corners and drives nice. Again, it would be nicer if it was not lifted and we had a little more of a conservative tire. That's a really sharp turn there. And you've seen the steering was easy, and I didn't shift around in gears, and it wasn't struggling, and the motor wasn't, laboring at all. So stopped at a stop sign. Again, use this opportunity to talk a little more about it and let you hear me pulling away. So I'm in first gear. I love the sound of that diesel motor. What do you guys think? Diesel? Yeah. So here's the thing about diesel and the 300 TDI. The 300 TDI can take some really bad fuel. And if this whole EV thing really comes to be true, diesel fuel will be the last fuel to leave. Because jets, the planes that are flying over us, that is a form of diesel fuel. The ships that are sailing the ocean, bringing us the cargo from all over the world, they use diesel fuel. Submarines, the food that's actually being made for us by the farmers, all the tractors are diesel. The semis, the tractor trailers that are on the highways that's bringing us our food and the stuff that we need to live with are all diesel. And all of those companies are not, and a lot of them could not even afford to switch to electric. Electric, I'm not saying electric is bad, but electric's not for everyone. Electric would not work for me. I'm in the middle of the country, and I like to go out and do camping, and I need to take care of the horses, and so I do. There's no infrastructure here, and there will never be an infrastructure here. I mean, heck, let's be honest. These houses I'm driving past right now, they don't even have high-speed internet. So who in their right mind thinks that an EV vehicle is going to fit for this part of the country? And I'm in New York, and a lot of people think, oh, you're in New York, and you think of New York City. That's a very small part of New York, is New York City. The vast majority of New York is like this. It's rolling hills and trees and farms and good old boys. So EV is not something that is feasible in a lot of the U.S. It's just a government push, and I'm sorry I'm on my soapbox right now, but it's a government push, and it's also a thing that the media is doing because it stirs people so much emotionally, so they keep on pushing it. There's a lot of people that don't want an EV, and I would be fine having EV if I lived in a city where there was a charging station or charging stations and it was very easy. But here, there's not. And, you know, I get frustrated where people trying to push things down our throat when they don't even understand how a lot of people live. And so anyway, you get my point. I don't have to harp on that. EV is not a way to save the world. I agree we need other types of fuel for our vehicles, but I think it's a mix, because it can't be an absolute in anything, because EV damages the world and the environment as much, if not more, than mining fuel. So I think it's all damaging, but you know, what are we going to do? I don't know what the answer is, but I know EV's not going to work for me. Which brings me to the point, Helderburg, we don't do EV, and we don't do LS or other engine swaps, because we're building Land Rovers that are going up in value, appreciate in value. And the only way to do that is to keep it as close to original as possible. But really original doesn't lend itself well to be a daily driver where it's really enjoyable. Like right now, it's cold. We have a wind chill. It's about 24 degrees Fahrenheit right now. I'm comfortable. I could take my jacket off. I have the heat on. I have a heated seat on. And I'm comfortable with that. So my point being, putting a non-Land Rover engine into a Land Rover will depreciate the value, and it really doesn't offer any benefit. If anything, it takes away, it detracts not only from the value, but just look at a brand new Corvette with the LS motor and look how it depreciates. If a new Corvette with the motor is going to depreciate, what do you think it's going to do to a Land Rover? It also creates mechanical nightmares, because now you're putting a computer into the vehicle. Now you're having to take it to the dealership to get fixed, versus a 300 TDI motor is absolutely bulletproof, and a DIY individual can actually work on it, meaning a backyard mechanic, somebody without a lot of experience. Parts are inexpensive and you don't need any special tools. They're very easy to work on. Hence, that's why Land Rovers, you see them, that they're using them in the remotest part of the earth, you know, in the wild where there is no repair shops and there's poor fuel quality, and they have to be self-sufficient. And that's because these vehicles are bulletproof. But Land Rover has a black cloud above its head, because when they started introducing the Discovery and the Range Rover, they introduced all the electronics, trying to make it into much more of a luxury vehicle, which caused a lot of problems. And that's the problem with Land Rover, was the electronics. It wasn't motor failure or transmission failure. It was sunroofs not working, power seats not working, cruise control not working. The lights on the dash going out and all that. It wasn't the motor or the transmission. And I will tell you, a Land Rover has gotten me home, and I've abused them a lot. I've blown up a couple motors. In fact, on Elizabeth, my D110, which you can see on Helderburg.com, that is gone, it went to John. I blew up that motor in the Midwest trying a new turbo and a boost, and I had too much boost on it. And I blew the connecting rod out of the side of the motor, and I had a hole in the side of the motor the size of my fist. And it dumped all of the oil out, and I was on the highway, actually the Northway or whatever you want to call it, doing about 80 miles an hour when it happened with too much turbo boost. So I drove it with no oil about 15, 16 miles to get it off the highway, and then created a patch, just got a piece of aluminum and some what's called JB weld, slapped it over the side of the motor, glued it, and then poured some more oil in it and drove it further to be able to wrecker it back, and drove it about 40 miles that way with only 3 cylinders. All right, so let's talk about Enzo some more. Enzo is sitting on 3 inches of lift, 35-inch tires are technically 37. To do a suspension lift, you have to do it properly. It does have 3-degree radius arms underneath. Those radius arms, what they do is they turn the axles back to the proper orientation, so you're not wearing the prop shafts out, drive shafts. It does have heavy-duty drive shafts, heavy-duty prop shaft. It has bigger, thicker axles, Salisbury axles. It has a little bigger brake on it to be able to stop this this beast of a truck. And again, 300 TDI. It has a larger intercooler. We custom built the injection pump. Right now I'm doing 55 and it's comfortable. These tires, though, I will tell you, again, they are not DOT legal. They are competition mud tires. They are not flat. They are shaped like balloons. They never balance. So you can't get a very steady steering wheel on it. It does have a little bit of shake to it. And you can't balance them properly. You just can't. Each tire on this truck weighs about 85 pounds. And the wheels themselves weigh about 40 pounds. That's a lot of additional weight and wear and tear on the vehicle, but it also just doesn't balance. But that's okay. I enjoy it. I built it for my purpose. You'll notice that it has a unique bumper, unique grille. I didn't put a winch, and I've had a lot of people go, "Oh man, it needs a winch." Well, yeah, it needs a winch if I need a winch, but I don't need a winch. I've done a lot of off-roading, and I've never gotten stuck. So I didn't want to put a winch up front. I wanted a clean look, and a winch would be too bulky along with this big grill on the front. I just didn't want it. And I have winches on my other vehicles, and I never use them. In the last 10 years, I've used a winch one time. So it would be purely for looks. And when designing Enzo, I said, I want to create a Defender, a 130 specifically because they're very rare in the United States, but I want to create it for my use, my purpose, and I want to make it for me. So that's what I did. You'll notice that it does have flares on the front, but it does not have flares on the rear. And the reason being is that's the way Land Rover did the 130 from the factory. So me being like taking a purist approach, but then adding my own modern flair, that was one design element I wanted to keep. I just like the looks of it. I just like that look. A lot of times the 130 gets confused with the 110 double cab, and the way to tell them apart is the 130 has a separate truck bed. It's not like a unibody. The 110 double cab is a unibody, and the 130 is a separate bed, inch, 20 inches longer. Again, that's an average. It's not centimeters, it's inches. So technically it's 127 inches, not a 130, but D127 doesn't sound as cool as D130. So I'm rolling down the highway. It's a pretty smooth road, and I'm at 60, but again, Mike's in front of me, so a Land Rover does have some things it does have internally. I'm jumping around. It does have intermittent wipers, so I can turn it one notch down as intermittent, and then it has 3 speeds up. Does not have cruise control, does not have ABS brakes, it does not have traction control, it does not have cruise control. It's you in the vehicle. And I gotta say, it's enjoyable. I'm in 5th gear and just rolling. So the D130 looks big. A lot of people think, oh my gosh, will it fit in the garage? All right, well, this one's been lifted. So with the roll cage and the roof rack, it's about 87 inches tall. But it's actually smaller than an F-150, a Ford F-150. This one being, again, average 130 inches, center of axle to center of axle, and an F-150 is 145 inches, center of axle to center of axle. And then a Toyota RAV4 is around 114 inches, center of axle to center of axle. So that gives you an idea. They do look big in person. I mean, look big in videos and pictures, but in person, why Enzo looks so big is because of the lift and the tires and the bulkiness of it. So what else can I tell you about Enzo, other than I had a number of people say, is this my favorite Defender? And it's in the top 5, definitely, maybe even the top 3. But that's kind of like me asking you, well, who's your favorite child? And you know, my favorite Defender generally is the last one that I built. But I will say, when I walk into the garage and Enzo's sitting in the garage, I go, wow, there's Enzo. And I have a lot of people say, well, where do I come up with the names? Sorry, I have a tickle. And I come up with the names, either it's based on something about the Defender itself, that where it came from, because a lot of times they're coming from an individual, a farmer, or someone that owns a winery, and something about them or their family or their history or the town that the Defender came from. That's where I come up with the names a lot of times. But Enzo, where I came up with the name Enzo, is, I don't know if you know, but I absolutely love Italian Mastiffs and Rottweilers, and I love all dogs, basically. But, you know, I've had Italian Mastiffs for a number of years because supposedly they don't slobber as much, but don't believe that. And so I have Leo, which is my black Mastiff, and then Enzo, which was my brindle Mastiff. And he had so much personality. They all have personality. But he got cancer and died at 2. And he had kind of longer legs. He was tall, but very stocky. And when I was designing this 130, I said, wow, it reminds me of Enzo. So that's what I did, is named it Enzo. So that's how the name come to be, was because of Enzo, my Italian Mastiff. I'm just turning and going here and going there. And then So back to the exterior of Enzo. Enzo, I said, is lifted. It is Fox shocks. It's polyurethane bushings, heavy duty everything. And I think you can tell by watching the video, it's not starved for power at all. And it is on 37-inch tires. So it goes, it scoots, it does everything I need it to do. I can zip in and out of traffic. I can get to where I want to go without going, man, I wish I had more power. And it's fun to drive. You'll also notice I'm not having to shift gears a lot. So let me kind of slow down and show you what I mean. I'm in fourth gear, but I'm gonna slow down and just show you how I can take it to a crawl. So I'm in second gear and I'm in a crawl. So imagine if you were in traffic. So let's go into first, like bumper to bumper traffic. Hence, the first thing you'll know is people will be looking at you and almost running you over because they'll be struggling to take pictures and shoot video of you driving such a unique vehicle. So I'm gonna break it down. I'm doing probably about 2 miles an hour. And then just a really light depress of the clutch slows it down, and then I can pull away. I'm in first gear. Let me pull in second gear though, and let's show you how I can just pull away in second gear. See how easy it is to drive a manual transmission? It is very easy. So I would say you don't need an automatic transmission because I can do everything I need to do. I can talk on the phone, and I can drive with one hand, just steering and just take it really slow. I'm not having to constantly be shifting gears like people, lead on. And I've logged hundreds of thousands of miles in a Defender. So I'm just telling you from experience, there's a lot of people on forums that will talk that don't really know. And I don't mean that as a negative or a smackdown. But then there's also people that have driven a normal everyday Land Rover Defender or one that's built that hasn't received all the Helderburg modifications. You notice my leg's not shaking to be able to shift gears because the clutch is so easy. I can actually depress this clutch with 3 fingers. That's how easy it is. So that gives you an idea. And again, you listen to shift. You can hear it, but you can feel it. This is a driver's vehicle. If you enjoy driving, and if you enjoy making people happy and smile when they see something so rare as a Land Rover, then a Defender is definitely for you. And this road is demolished. This is a little back minimum maintenance road. But you'll notice it's quiet in the cabin. There's nothing squeaking or rattling or anything like that. It's a Helderburg. All right, guys, so I think that pretty much sums it up. I think that gives you a really good indication. If I've left anything out that you want to know more about Enzo or Helderburg or Land Rovers in general, just leave it in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our channel so other people can experience Land Rover Defenders. And, just check out our website, see what's going on, see the events we'll be at. Like I said, we will be in Dallas January 5th through the 8th of 2023 at the K. Hutchinson Bailey, I think that's right, Convention Center. Come see some Helderbergs in person. Subscribe to our channels. Let us know what information you would like to see, what videos you'd like us to do. And if you can ever experience driving a Defender, then by all means do it. Come visit us. We're in Sharon Springs, New York, which is an hour northwest of Albany, New York. And we're in the country. It's beautiful. We're at the foothills of the Catskill Mountains and the Adirondack Mountains. It's country here, and it's beautiful. That pretty much sums it up. But thanks for riding along with me. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share it. It makes me smile and makes me feel like that you really appreciate what we're doing. So thanks. And I'm just going to drive now. You're welcome to hang out and just listen. I'll be quiet.